You get different emotional energies from both the mother and father. And you need them, whether you're a boy or a girl. You receive energy from both your mother and father. This is why it's important to be emotionally healthy before you have children. So you can truly help your child develop emotionally, you have to be emotionally developed first. You receive a certain energy from both parents as you develop, and you need that for your development. And this is why both parents should be emotionally healthy first. But sadly, most cases in this modern day, that's not the situation. You have parents who are emotionally unhealthy. This is why it's important. Both parents should be emotionally developed first before having children. Because that energy is in the egg and the energy is in the sperm. The energy is in the egg, in the woman, and the sperm in the man. This is why emotional well-being was so important in our society. But once the couple meet, and the man and the woman are both emotionally healthy, they fall in love, and they make love, and after a time they have their child, and the father is there with the mother, and they're both emotionally healthy. So now they're going to give a really good foundation for this child. As they raise the child is receiving healthy energy from both the mother and the father. It needs that. It needs it from both to develop. So it becomes emotionally developed. That's the best case scenario. The father is around. The mother is around. They are there, both loving and raising that child. And they are both emotionally healthy to begin with. So they're together. They know how to work through difficulties in their marriage. Every time they work through a difficulty, their love grows stronger for each other because they do this in their own lives. Part of being emotionally developed means learning from your difficulties. That way you don't see them as a bad thing, but you see them as teaching experiences. Time to learn. You do this in your own life. You make the best of the situation, learn from it. You release the emotional energy in a healthy, constructive way, and then it becomes a blessing. In time, it becomes a blessing. You transform it. You know that. You've been taught that. You know how to do that. So you're not afraid of difficulty. And difficulty is not a bad thing. You see difficulty as a time to learn. That's how it is for our ancestors. Difficulty was not a bad thing. There was a time for the people to come together and say, let's help this dude or let's help this lady. What we can. Time to learn. That's good. Learning is always good. Even when it's learning how not to do something, it's still learning. So you do this in your own life, and you'll attract a person who can do that too. Because like attracts like. And you do this because it nurtures and maintains peace inside of you. Because reality begins within. That's the first concept. Reality begins within. And when you have a peaceful within, you know how to live. And then you enjoy life. And also, like I said, when difficulty happens, you don't see it as a bad thing. You see it as a time to learn. And maybe there's strong emotions, but that's just part of the learning experience. It's part of the process. So you do what you have to do, and you'll be okay. That's how that is. So when you're this way, you attract somebody this way, and both of you are this way together when you're married. When a difficulty comes to your relationship, you both know how to deal with it. And the result is, most of the time, your love for each other is increased. All of this is because both of you are emotionally healthy. So it's not about praying to some god or doing certain ceremony. It's not about that at all. It's about emotional development. That's the key here. That's what the Western world is missing, is emotional development. So in that sense, see, the children, they receive their energies from the mother and the father as they're developing. That's crucial to the success of the society, because them children are going to grow up too. They're going to become adults. So they have to be emotionally developed. And it comes from both the mother and the father in the beginning. That's why emotional development is so important. And in the Lakota way, we have this system called the Tioshpai, an extended family system. And this is the way it works. Your mother and her sisters are all your mothers. The men who are with those women, those are all your fathers. So all the children that come from those unions are your brothers and sisters. Your mother's brothers are your uncles. And their women are your aunts. And their children are your cousins. That's your mother's side. On your father's side, your father and his brothers are all your fathers too. And the women of those men are your other mothers. And the children from those marriages or unions are your other brothers and sisters. Your father's sisters are your aunts, and their men are your other uncles, and the children from those unions are your other cousins. And all grandmas and grandpas are grandmas and grandpas to everybody. This is our Tioshpai concept. So you see in the Tioshpai, a child has many mothers and many fathers. So that if something happens to the biological parents, that child is still going to receive motherly energy and fatherly energy in its development. This ensures the child will grow up to be an emotionally healthy adult. So it strengthens the community. That's family. Isn't that cool? That ensures that the child receives healthy motherly energy and healthy fatherly energy for its own development, so it becomes an emotionally developed adult. So if something happens to your biological mother or father, it's sad, of course, but there's still many mothers and many fathers ready to nurture you. So you still will get a very emotionally healthy foundation. That's why it's so important. When you're looking at family from an ancient Lakota perspective, that it's more than a physical thing, and it's more than a spiritual thing, and it's more than a mental thing. It's an emotional thing. And to fulfill that, we have to be emotionally developed. We have to be emotionally developed. And that's hard to do in the dualistic world, because in a dualistic world, there is no emotional development. And that's the modern world. The modern world is a dualistic world. So now you're probably asking, what is a dualistic world? Duality is when you see everything in only two groups, and you say, I like this one, So that's good. And then everything else that's different, you say that's bad. And everything is focused on that. So you see everything in life as only having two components. That's why it's called duality. Duality comes from the word duo, and duo is Latin for two. And when you only have two, you have the tendency to assign one a good label and the other one a bad label, and that's where you get into trouble. That's when you start thinking that positive is good and negative is bad, and that's not true. This universe is founded upon four elements, and they're not about which one is the best one. It's not like that. These four elements, they just work differently. They don't fight against each other or anything. They just work differently. And this is how the universe is created. So you see, it's not just two, it's more than two. Lakota Star Knowledge says it's going to always be at least three components to reality. Most of the times it's four, but at least three. And many times it's more than four. But it's never, 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 ever just two. So duality is when you lose something. Lakota Star Knowledge says there's at least three components to reality. In duality, there's only two. Well, that means you're missing something. That means when you're dualistic, when you're a racist, when you say your way is the only way, when you say your religion is the only religion, when you say your race is the best race, the chosen race, when you talk like that, you're dualistic. And since you only see two components to reality, that means you do not see the complete reality. And this is the problem of today. Duality. That's the main problem. And in duality, we don't take the time to check things out. We just judge it right away. We look at something or somebody and we say, oh, I don't like that. So that's evil. It must be destroyed. My favorite line from that movie called Steel Magnolias. You are evil. It must be destroyed. Shoot. Anyway, this is the problem that we have today. Duality creates everything that's problematic for everything, actually. It's not just for humans, it's also the problem for plants and animals and that which moves and grows, because all creation is connected.
So it would be good to learn what duality is so that we can learn how to transform it into something that is healthy and that will work for the benefit of all creation.
Concerning having a child, that ultimately the best case scenario is that you have a healthy mother and a healthy father emotionally, so that you can receive healthy emotional energy from each one in your developing years. That's why it's important to pick the right partner, to be very picky, to be choosy. And this means you've got to take the time to know them. So that's what they did in the old days. They would take the time to know each other. And even though they might find each other physically appealing, they're looking for other things too. The woman is saying, is he a good hunter? Will he keep the community fed? Remember, they're community thinking, so they don't say, will he keep the family fed? No, they say, will he keep the community fed? Will he protect the community? See, they're looking for this. So it's not just good looks. They're looking for abilities in providing for the community. And the men are doing the same thing. Is this woman going to help contribute to the community? Or does she just care about her looks? Because there were women who were that way. They were really vain. And she might be really pretty and good looking and just sweet and everything, but she doesn't do anything. They stay away from her because that means she's not going to be a good mother either. She only cares for herself. So they go further than looks. It's important to be physically attracted to somebody, but you have to take the time to find out what kind of person are they. Because they might not be good. You'll never know unless you talk. Then you know if you want them or not. Because if they're nice, the chances are they have healthy energy, emotional energy. That's part of the courting process in ancient time. A lot of people think, oh yeah, well I saw in Windwalker that this guy wanted to give 6 horses to this chief for his daughter. So they think that's how it was, and just because they saw it in a movie. No, the woman can still say no. It's the woman who makes the decision. Her father doesn't make the decision. The woman might know that he's not a good guy, so she'll turn it down. And so, too bad. Just lost 6 horses. Because when you give something, you can't take it back. So he just lost 6 horses for nothing. That's why you take the time to check things out instead of just going by a physical appearance. People go on these singles websites looking for a pretty girl or a cute guy, and then they start, hey, you're really pretty. Z, rugged guys. Nobody focuses on finding out what kind of person are they. Are they good people? Are they bad people? Because somebody can be really good looking and be meaner than hell. In ancient Lakota Sioux, when a child is born, they watch it. As it's learning to walk and run and as it's playing, they watch it. They watch it to see what kind of child is this. Because there's all kinds of possibilities. And you may get a child that is a boy, but it's like a girl. And there's nothing wrong with that. Most likely that's a transgender child. That the mind is female, but the body is male. There's nothing wrong. So it's seen as a girl. He will be called a she. She will grow up as a woman, and everybody will see her as a woman. They live normal lives as women. They just can't have children, obviously. Sometimes that happens, and that's okay. And so they watch the child and they see, what kind of child is this going to be? And they can usually tell where the interests are leading to. So they know which ones are going to be the hunters. They know which ones are going to be wise. They know which ones are going to be the builders and so forth. Which ones are going to be good in making clothes and homes and cooking and all different things that a society needs. They know which ones are going to be good in that. Talent. So then there's a society that's based on each talent. So when the child's talent is identified, the child is raised by that society during the daytime. So the child learns its talent from older ones, and it's nurtured, and they help each other. And the child, when it becomes a young adult, like 15 years old, this child is really emotionally developed. Whether it's a boy or a girl, they are ready to raise a family. They're emotionally ready for it. But they don't get married. They're just ready. Do you see what I mean? They're emotionally ready for it. They don't get married for several years. They're encouraged to check things out. Then as they get older, like in their early 20s, or maybe even like 18, 19, they're ready emotionally. But they were ready since they were 15. Then they will be with somebody because they've developed their talents, they can take care of this community, their family. They know how to be fathers and mothers because they've seen it in action too. So they're learning from the older people. They see the results of being generous and compassionate to others and how it makes other people feel really good. So they fall into that community thinking perspective. So when a young man and young woman are attracted to each other, they find out how good are they in their role in the community. So it's not just looks alone. It's how are they in the community? Do they serve their community? Do they provide for their community? Do they take care of their community? All of that's really important. Because when they can do that, that means they're going to be good mothers and good fathers. And good husbands and good wives. And that all starts with emotional development coming as a child from a healthy mother and a healthy father. And the tradition continues another generation. That these young children grow up to be healthy emotionally because they've had healthy mothers and fathers, and now they're going to become healthy mothers and fathers. And they pass that on to the next generation. That's Tioshpai. That's why our societies were so successful for thousands of years, because of this emotional development. So, having children, it's really a sacred thing. This child is coming into this world with some sacred pieces inside of its body. We all have them. But when the child is born, see, these just arrived. It just came here. So it's a big celebration. When a child is born, it's a huge celebration. The whole community celebrates and welcomes that child. But you know, before the child is born, the mother is already talking to it, and she's telling stories, talking about the family. And at certain times, the family comes too, and they talk to this unborn child. So the child is getting familiar with the voices, the tones of the voices of the family. They sing songs to the child. So all this energy, the child feels this family energy, and it's already being programmed. It's already being programmed in a healthy way. So when the child is born, it's really prepared good. It's prepared in love. And everybody is celebrating. It's a happy event. You always see movies where the sun comes up, they hold the baby up to the sun, and that's a little bit over dramatic. Because sometimes babies are born at night. There's nothing wrong with that. So, anywho, look at all the preparation that's important. Once a woman is starting to show, once she knows that she's pregnant, look at the preparation that already begins. That before the child is born, there's lots of things happening, and it's very important that the unborn child hears the voices of the family, because through those voices, the child is picking up energy too. Because you know how it is when you talk to somebody and you can tell how they are. You can tell their energy level. You can tell if something is bothering them or not. Babies pick up on this. Unborn babies pick up on this. They know something is going on. It is a sacred thing to be a mother and a father. It's important that when a child is being raised, that the child receives motherly energy plus fatherly energy to help it develop. And all of this plays a role on the development of that child. So when a man and a woman get together and do the ooh thing, I'll say it like that, and do the oh thing, however it is for you. Maybe it's or maybe it's cock-a-doodle-doo. Everybody has their own way of expressing themselves, yeah? In that moment. Shoot. But it's a beautiful thing, you know. You know what I mean? It's a beautiful thing. When the sperm penetrates the egg, something amazing is happening more than that. This is what a lot of people don't realize, that there is something sacred happening more than you think. This is where the male and the female energies from the mother
and from the father
are going to create this human, this baby. So it's not just the physical characteristics of the sperm and the egg. There's something emotional happening here too. This child is receiving something from the mother and the father in the emotional area. So this is why it's really important for people to be emotionally developed. So when this does happen, and the woman conceives and gets pregnant, that it's healthy. That even this is healthy. Maybe it started out because they were physically attracted to each other and maybe became emotionally and mentally attracted to each other. This is an expression of all of that. So this is why it's important for the man and the woman to be emotionally healthy to begin with, because that point of conception is crucial for the start of that unborn baby. That's very, very important. In Lakota beliefs, when a child is conceived, at the point of conception, the earth gives a soul piece to that physical unborn child. So it has a soul. It's not the child's soul. It's a part of the soul of the earth. That allows that child to live on the earth. And then it has the body, of course, the mind, that's from the body, and the emotion, because it's also from the body. So it does have the four parts of the self: physical, mental, spiritual, emotional. It does have that. It just does not have its own soul, not yet. But it does have a soul piece from the earth. But when the child is born and takes its first breath, like that, Soon as it exhales, a soul enters through the top of the head. In the Lakota ancient tradition, your soul has 4 pieces. Now, I'm going to focus on 2 pieces here. I'm not going to tell you what the other ones are because I want to stay on topic. These 2 pieces, one is called Nari, and the other one is called Narila. Nari and Narila look alike. And sometimes, when emotions are really strong, the Narila can take off. It separates. And it takes off. And if you don't get it back, you have a problem now. So think of all the situations where emotions can run really high. Those are moments when the Narila can separate. This is why in our culture we say it's okay to laugh, just don't overdo it. It's okay to cry, but don't overdo it. It's okay to be angry, but you can't stay there. And it's okay to be scared, but you can't stay there either. Those are the 4 basic emotions, by the way. All other emotions are combinations of those 4. So, when you go too strong in one of these emotions, you can lose your Narila. So when children are playing and it's time to come in for the evening, it's time to come home, the mom or dad or both will stand by the door of the teepee and they'll call their child to come home now. So the child comes running home, and then the child stands by its parents, because even as the child is there, the parents are still calling the child. I went through this too. When my mom would call me in to come home for the evening, she would be standing at the door calling my name. David, time to come in now. David. Yeah. So I start running home, and as I get there, she's still looking out there. Even though I'm right in front of her, she's still looking around, calling my name. But see, I understood what's happening. So then I would stand beside her, then I would be calling my name too. When you're not from our culture, you might think it's a funny thing happening, because it looks funny. I'm standing right beside my mom, and I'm saying the same thing. David, time to come in now. Come home now, David. I'm saying it too. Why am I saying that? Why am I calling myself home when I'm already home? You know what I'm doing? I'm calling my Narila. I'm making sure it comes back. If it's gone, I'm making sure it comes back, because children, when they play, a lot of times there's laughing. A lot of times they're having such a good time that the Narila takes off because of the high emotion. So you have to call it back. Otherwise, you're going to have a problem later. Do you see what I mean? That's an example. Now, think of the Vietnam War, one of the worst wars in the world, the modern world. One of the most horrible wars. All wars are bad. There's no such thing as a good war. But the Vietnam War was especially horrible. A lot of people lost their Narila. The trauma that they experienced, through that, they lost their Narila. those who lived and returned to America, they never were complete again. And there's some traditionals that when they went to sweat lodge ceremony after they came back, they told their medicine men that they don't feel right. Part of that is post-traumatic stress disorder, but this is related to something too. They lost their nahila. So part of their healing process involved getting it back. So a lot of these men and some women who were part of it, they went through a ceremony to get their nahila back. And that helped them to have more success in dealing with their post-traumatic stress disorder. So they ended up okay. They always have problems, but the most important thing is they got their nahila back. And they were able to begin healing. And some of these Vietnam veterans, they have friends who are not native. And I know several stories where their non-native friends really liked the way native communities honored their people who went there. And so they wanted that too. So there were some non-natives who went through this, that they got them to call their nahila back, to get their nahila back, so that they could also continue on their healing too. So when I was talking about emotional development in a child, the more emotional well-being a child has, the stronger the connection between the nahi and the nahila. So when we don't have that emotional well-being, our nahila can just easily take off. And if we don't call it back, we're not going to be complete. No matter what you do in your life, you're always going to feel a sense of loneliness. This is one reason why people experience loneliness. They lost their nahila. So again, this is why emotional well-being is so important. And when you have children, it's so important that you are emotionally healthy, so that you attract somebody who's also emotionally healthy, that you will nurture your child in a healthy way before it's even born. When people look at somebody and become physically attracted, that's natural. But when everything is founded only on that physical attraction, that means they've lost their nahila, because they don't take the time to know somebody. This nahila business is really serious. People don't realize that this could be a very serious problem when we lose it. So when you're looking at emotional development in the child, this is crucial to our existence. And when we lose the nahila and we don't get it back, look at how much from life we are missing. That we're not fully experiencing our lives. We're not enjoying our lives fully. We are not living our lives fully when we don't have our nahila. This is important for emotional development to happen, because to call back your nahila is not the full scope. We have to also be emotionally healthy so that it stays. You see how important these things are? A lot of our peace depends on things that we can't see, but we know they're there because we know that something feels wrong when it's not there. And as soon as we take care of it, we have emotional well-being, and we know to call back and maintain our nahila. When we know that, we don't feel empty anymore. We don't feel that loneliness anymore, or not as strong as we used to anyway. Just because we don't get the emotional foundation that we should when we're little kids, that doesn't mean everything is lost. Not all hope is lost. We can still come back. We can still make a healing from it. We can still heal from it. In Lakota ancient culture, we have this generosity, natural law. This states that what you send out returns to you 4 times as strong. Now, some people think, okay, so I'm going to do something good, so 4 good things will happen to me. That's not what it means. That's not what it means. If that were true, then people would be doing all kinds of good things, even though they don't mean it, just because they want 4 good things to happen to them. And it does not work that way. No, ma'am, no, sir. It does not work that way. No, what it means is that the energy returns, but not blessings or cursings. It's an energy that returns 4 times as strong, and it does something to your soul development. Wherever you're at in your life, this energy does something to your soul development. So either you hinder your soul development or you bless it. So it's not about getting something in return. Like, oh, I'm going to build a house for somebody, so that way maybe I get a Rolls Royce in return and a swimming pool. And see, that's material thinking, materialism. This is not the natural law of generosity. So it's not about doing something so that you can get something in return. No, no. It's not about that at all. Natural law of generosity, one more time, is the energy you send out returns to you 4 times as strong. And like I said, it can either hinder your soul development, and if it does that, you go into emotional denial, because these two are really connected. Or you can bless your soul development in this way, and your emotional development continues as well. They're both tied into each other. But emotional development is a key here, because you cannot develop spiritually until you are emotionally developed, emotionally healthy. So if you're not emotionally healthy, you can go to your culture ceremonies as much as you want to. It's not going to do a damn thing. Because you might increase in spiritual knowledge, but that does not affect your soul development. What affects your soul development is your emotional well-being. That's what's important. Then everything else falls in. So, in natural law of generosity, when I say whatever you send out, this is communication. Communication is a two-way street. It's not only the things you say and do, it's also how you say and do these things. For example, somebody might be saying, "Oh yeah, I help everybody out," but his facial expression says the opposite. His words are saying, "Yeah, I love everybody, I help everybody out," but his face is saying, "As long as they're white people." You see what I mean? He's saying one thing, but you can tell he means another by the tone of his voice. This is dishonesty. That's an unhealthy communication. See, he just sent it out. So even though it's the words themselves, the statements themselves, if you just look at, yes, I love everybody, so I help everybody, those are really nice words. But he said it in such a way that he doesn't mean it. So it's a lie. It's a deception, which makes it unhealthy. So even though the statements are nice and pretty, it's still unhealthy energy because he does not mean it. So that's why I said it's not only what you say and do, it's how you say and do whatever it is that you said or did. The other aspects of communication are, how do you process your difficulties and enjoy your blessings? That's also communication. And what is your thought process like? That's also communication. Okay, now that's half of the definition of communication. The other half of the definition is, how do you receive communication? How good do you really listen when somebody's talking to you? Are you forming your response while they're talking to you? If you are, you're not communicating in a good way because you're not really listening. You're just hearing, but you're not really listening. Listening is fine-tuning. It's really paying attention to what the other person is saying to you. So you don't form a response. Just listen to everything they have to say. When they get done, if something needs to be clarified for you, that's when you ask your question. So you don't interrupt them because they're on a thought process. And if you interrupt them, they might lose it. This is why I really don't like seeing conversations or interviews where the reporter is constantly interrupting the person because the reporter wants a certain answer. This is manipulation. When you constantly interrupt somebody, you're communicating in an unhealthy way. And that's going to come back to you 4 times as strong. Because you're not really listening. You're trying to get a certain answer out of somebody by interrupting them and changing the question. So you're manipulating them. This is not healthy communication. Listening is part of the other half of the definition. The other things are, when you see something, how do you interpret it? When I used to teach at school in South Dakota, I used to put a TV in the center of the room, and then I'd have my students sit around the TV in a circle. Then I would ask them, just look at what you see. You stay in your chair, just look at what you see. Now describe it to me. Just describe what you see in front of you. So one guy might say, well, there's a screen and there's some knobs. And a lady, she might say, no, there isn't. There's nothing here but a cord and a bunch of dust. And, and she might say, you're wrong. There's no screen. See what I mean? They're both correct, but both have incomplete descriptions. But one might say, well, you're wrong. The other one will say, no, you're wrong. They think they have complete description, and they think the other one is false. This is an example of being judgmental without having the full knowledge. If I communicate healthy and I have children, the chances are good that my children will pick up on that too, and that their communication is also healthy. So it's really important to be emotionally healthy before you have children, so that you can teach your children not to judge anybody, but they learn how to take the time to check things out. Because they're going to learn everything from you, whether you like it or not. Everything they're going to pick up that's coming from you, they're going to soak that up. So if you judge people without even taking the time to know them, you're creating racists, and you are influencing that child to grow up into an unhealthy individual. That's why people say racism is learned. Take the time to check things out. That's a healthy communication. Because when you are this way, others around you feel good. But if you believe in gossip, you are creating an unhealthy environment. That means you are sending out unhealthy energy. And that means it's going to return to you 4 times as strong and hinder you in anything that you try to do, even if it's a good thing that you're trying to do. You are stopping yourself. You are making yourself close-minded. You are the one who's put a sack over your head and you're trying to look around as if it doesn't exist. Why would you do that? But that's what you're doing when you don't take the time to check things out. How you communicate affects your emotional development, and that's going to affect your children because they're going to learn that from you. I knew this one guy when I still lived in South Dakota. He's a funny guy. He does this impression of a drunk, but he does it in a really funny way. One time his daughter came back from school, and she was probably about 10 years old. He said, "So how are you?" So she came walking in all funny. "I'm all right." He said, "What's wrong with you?" "Nothing. Ease," she said. She was pretending to be drunk like he does. Yeah. He doesn't drink, yeah, but he just does this to be funny. And he didn't realize it, but his daughter was picking up on that. So she was doing that too. You have to make her friends laugh. Your children are going to imitate you. So how you are is going to influence your children. So if you judge a culture or a religion in a very unhealthy way, you're teaching your child indirectly, but it's still teaching the child to think in an unhealthy way. Being a parent is very serious business. Being a mother and a father is the most wonderful blessing that we can ever have in our lives. And for those of you who've raised children. You know what I mean? The most important thing is that the child is receiving motherly energy and fatherly energy from someplace. Because there are situations, for example, when the mother dies in childbirth or the father dies in a car wreck or something. Those things cannot be helped because they do happen. But that does not mean all hope is lost. It just means you have to provide another source. And that's why I was talking about the Tioshbaya concept, where if something like this did happen, there are other mothers ready for this child and other fathers too. That's why in our culture, like many cultures, believe that it takes a community to raise a child. This is true. And when a community is this way, that community, that society is strong and healthy. So coming from a single parent family is not a bad thing. I think I turned out okay. Maybe a little bit funny looking, but I'm still okay. Anyway,
To read more about Lakota Star Knowledge spirituality, you can read my book called Wichocha Otechike. You can see the book cover on the right side of this screen. This book contains the information to what I talk about on my Lakota spirituality videos. To purchase this book, please click below where it says Show More. Clicking on that link will open up the description below, and there you will see a link called To Purchase My Books. As you will see, it's an eBay link. Click on that eBay link, and there you will see the information to get this book. Lila Pila Mayelo. Thank you very much.